Hello and welcome to Web Relates. Today we're looking at the AskReddit subreddit, where Throwaway has asked, "What historical fact you find insane is not commonly known?" Four Kobolds in a Coat says, between 1864 and 1870, Paraguay fought a war with Brazil, Uruguay and Argentina that by some estimates killed as much as 70% of its population, with up to 90% of its adult male population dying or fleeing the country. Strange Light has replied, "It's called the War of the Triple Alliance usually. The Paraguayans are usually described as the foolish aggressors." Glitchy B has added some more context. Summarizing badly, Paraguay wanted to control a crucial river basin in the region, Rio de Prata. This is the second largest river basin in South America. Before the war, Paraguay had entered into a conflict with Uruguay, which led to an alliance between Argentina, Brazil and Uruguay, which lasted through the oncoming war. So I guess Paraguay was vastly outnumbered, though the cause of high mortality isn't strictly war battles, as a lot of people died from disease due to poor hygiene, food scarcity, and infections, as this was pre-antibiotics. Edit. Some people are curious about the spelling. I'm Brazilian, and my brain defaulted to writing in the Portuguese spelling because I was half asleep when I typed that. Also, some commenters have given further details on the conflict in Uruguay before the war, which is actually quite interesting since the above is a crude summary of what I remember having learned in high school about the conflict. So it's interesting to hear some nuances, as we probably were taught a very pro-Brazil version of it. Remote Building says, Abraham Lincoln's son, Robert Todd Lincoln, was present at 3 different presidential assassinations. After McKinley, he decided not to accept any more invitations. Project 2R has replied, Robert Lincoln was also once saved on a train platform by John Wilkes Booth's older brother, Edwin, also a famous actor of the time. And Adrasto has said, that's not all. Robert Todd Lincoln also dated, even if back in that time you wouldn't have used this term, Lucy Lambert Hale, who was a popular beauty of her time in Washington, D.C. They never officially got together, but remained good friends. By early 1865, she was often seen together in public with another man, one she was clandestinely engaged with. On March 4, 1865, the couple attended Lincoln's second presidential inauguration with a ticket that Lucy had procured through her father, a prominent U.S. senator. Now, you wouldn't guess the name of Hale's fiancé. John Wilkes Booth. Yeah, that guy. BBBBB, that's 5 Bs, has said, a very recent historical fact that is weirdly not talked about as much as it should be. Microsoft had accumulated such a big monopoly over the personal computer market through the 80s and 90s that in 1997, Microsoft was nearly broken apart by the US government. In an attempt to avoid any investigation, Microsoft invested nearly $150 million into a then-failing Apple computer to give the US government less ammunition in a potential antitrust case. This saved Apple from bankruptcy and helped them to become one of the biggest tech companies in history. Microsoft, however, profited off this investment. In 2003, Microsoft sold their shares in Apple for nearly $600 million. JXG has said, for people in the UK, it's that black currants and blackcurrant flavour are largely unknown in the USA. In the UK, everything purple is blackcurrant flavoured, not grape. The reason is blackcurrants carry a fungus that is lethal to white pine, which is one of the USA's top timber exports. Okay, that's pretty interesting. In South Africa, we have pretty much an equal amount of both, although I would say grape is more common in the more sugary things, like say you go get a slushy, that's more likely to be grape flavored. But if you go and get like a chewy gum sweet, that's more likely to be blackcurrant. Whimsical Whisper says, ancient Romans would put sandals on the hands of sleeping people, then tickle their face, so they would slap themselves. It's good to see that the humor of humanity has progressed exactly 0%. Atlantic Nikita says, Portugal had a death queen, and it is an insane real love story. If you like Romeo and Juliet, search for the story of Dom Pedro and Dona Inés for the real-life version of it. Long story short, Dom Pedro was first in line to be the next king of Portugal, so his father, the king, arranged a marriage suited for his position with a Spanish noble lady. But the future king fell in love with one of the ladies-in-waiting of his bride, Dona Inés. They got married in secret and had a bunch of kids. The king didn't like that and sent his knights to kill her. Dom Pedro went bat-crap crazy, found the knights and killed them, and ripped out the heart of one of the knights. Then he got the corpse of Dona Inez, put it on the throne, and made the nobles pay allegiance to her by kissing her hand. He still became king in the end. There's a lot more to the story, but all of it is crazy, but true facts. Portuguese royal history is full of stuff that could be part of Game of Thrones. Jenny Bear says, during the Irish famine, the Choctaw Nation from the USA sent financial aid to them, and while a small amount at the time, it was seen as a great gesture. In return, during COVID, many Irish people donated money to the Navajo Nation to help them. There's a statue in County Cork to commemorate it as well. Red Variation says, humans developed agriculture around 12,000 years ago. By storing grain, huge numbers of rodents flourished. Cats showed up to eat the rodents, and humans learned that if they took care of the cats would control the rodents. Therefore, it was the invention of agriculture that led to the domestication of the house cat. Jorost has replied, it gets even weirder. Cats basically domesticated themselves, because natural selection favored those individuals that were brave enough to associate with humans and get all those tasty, tasty rodents. That's pretty cool. I think that should have been a bigger plot point in the Joseph King of Dreams movie. That's a lesser-known movie produced after the very famous Prince of Egypt movie, by the way. Censorized has said, the Canadian-Denmark Whiskey War was probably the most polite war ever. It involved a small island off the coast of Greenland. The Canadians claimed it by putting the Canadian flag and bottles of Canadian whiskey on the rock, and the Danes would replace it with schnapps and the Danish flag. Both sides reached an agreement to split the island in 2022. I'm guessing this is more well known to Canadians and Danes than some of the rest of us. Tree Are Made of Bark says, Mongolian invasion of Japan was stopped by a typhoon. When they tried again, they were stopped by another typhoon. To this day, these were the only 2 typhoons recorded in that place. Noping My Way Out has replied, literally the source of the term kamikaze, divine wind. The typhoons felt like some real-life Deus Ex Machina to the Japanese at the time. Apparently, long before this as well, Genghis Khan, leading the Mongol invasion across Asia, he killed so many people he actually lowered the global temperature. AskReddit says, during Prohibition, grape concentrate bricks called Vine Glow were sold. On the packaging, it included a very specific warning. After dissolving the brick in a gallon of water, do not place the liquid in a jug away in the cupboard for 20 days, because then it would turn into wine. That kind of feels like a sneaky malicious compliance. I like it. Snommans says, Coca-Cola still uses coca leaves in their formula, but just for the flavor. They are the only US company that is legally allowed to import coca leaves. The processed leaves are then sold to a pharmaceutical company. Emu has replied, technically it isn't Coca-Cola, but rather a third party that imports the coca leaves. The Stepan Company plant in Maywood, New Jersey. They process the leaves and use the cocaine for medical purposes, and the extract for Coca-Cola. Dolly says, William Price. After cremating his son in 1884, he was arrested by those who believed cremation was illegal under English law. He successfully argued that there was no legislation that specifically outlawed it, which paved the way for the Cremation Act 1902 and reintroduced cremation into society as an alternative to burial. I am directly related to him through my father's side of the family. Nisman no Murio has said, the Chinese sparrow hunt in 1960. It was to protect crops, but it allowed invasions of locusts that no longer had a predator, and this caused the Great Chinese Famine. Oh, this reminded me of Australia, and I had to go look it up to make sure I was getting it right. But they had a problem with these cane beetles eating all the sugarcane. So they introduced cane toads from Hawaii, I think, and these guys were supposed to control the cane beetle population. But the cane toads didn't do that. They failed that. In addition, they started eating all sorts of other random things, destroying ecosystems from other insects, other frogs, other small mammals. And they were also poisonous, so things that ate them then died, and it just really became a huge problem. Spider-Man Bread has said, the reason we have coal is because trees weren't biodegradable back then. so it just underwent the geological process and formed underground under pressure and high temperatures. The fungus that breaks down trees only evolved 40 million years ago. Genetic Outlier has replied with some clarification. Almost right, it was for the first 40 million years that nothing could eat wood, so the fungus only evolved 340 million years ago. But you can only imagine the forest fires with all that dead, dried wood and much higher oxygen levels. Not anybody else has said, when the Waikato tribes had overextended versus Taranaki tribes, the future Maori king Patatau Te Wero realized that they were being lured into an ambush and tried to call his allies back. It would have turned into a rout, but he took up a ko, a gardening stick, he didn't even have his weapons with him, and struck down enemy chiefs in single combat repeatedly until both sides stopped to watch, and retired for the day. No wonder they chose him to be the first king. Gardening hose beats military bros, apparently. Lastly, we have Video Kid with several interesting facts. Firstly, the late Queen of England had 2 mentally disabled cousins who were abandoned in a mental hospital, which was literally once called the Asylum for Idiots, and never claimed as part of the family, and they were even listed as dead for 47 and 26 years respectively, before the truth came out. Secondly, George V was euthanized against his will because they thought it was more dignified to have his death reported in the morning news than the evening. Third, in medieval Germany it was common for priests and nuns to literally enter symbolic marriages to Jesus, and numerous religious books from the era mention the wedding nights. And fourth, there was a species of tortoise on the Galapagos that was never fully catalogued at the time of Darwin's expedition. Because it was so delicious, no specimens made it back to the UK. Okay everyone, thank you very much for watching, that's it for today. Of course, as always, with the internet and facts, please take it with a grain of salt. If anything was interesting to you, go look it up for yourself and see if you find anything more. And otherwise, if you enjoyed, please like, comment, and subscribe. And then I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers!